Great to have you on board today, Joanne. I'm really excited to have a chat with you. It's something where we've known each other for a number of years through a few different areas of what we've done together. And I know that at the moment you're doing something that's really cool. So I am super excited that you've made time to take out of your busy time over there in WA to have a chat with us. Do you want to just share what it is you're doing right now?
Well, actually, right now I'm with my sister on her property in Narrogin, and I'm here with my grandson and my daughter. And it's Killian's first visit to a farm. So we've been out and let the chooks out this morning and played ball with the dogs and patted the horse and took the horse to the paddock. So he's had a very exciting morning with horses and dogs and cats and chickens, and given he lives in an apartment in Melbourne, that's a very different morning for him. So
Yeah,
we've been
sure is.
enjoying that really special family time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. A long way to go for a farm visit. There are farms here in Victoria too, you know.
Yeah, although they don't have my sister on them. And it was really funny when we arrived, because he gets out of the car and he looks at my sister, and then he kind of looks at me, and then he looks at her, and it's like, oh my God, there's two.
In the same place. What's going on?
That's right. There's two nonnas here.
Yeah, I love it.
So
Awesome.
yeah,
So thank
that
you
was
for
very
making the
funny.
time. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it out of that.
my pleasure. My
And
pleasure.
the reason I wanted to get you on to the podcast to have a chat
Yeah,
is I know you've recently had a couple of articles published in the Massage Journal, the Massage and
yeah.
Mindset Australia Journal, specifically around the sort of mind-body connection and how we use language and constructs of the mind to be able
Yes.
to influence the impacts that we have on people in treatment. And so,
Hmm.
what a great opportunity to get you on the podcast and have a chat. And I was saying this to you off air just a minute ago, but I really see that a lot of therapists really do recognize the power of the mind-body connection. It's sort of an underlying theme in a lot of what people understand and do.
Absolutely.
But a
Mm.
massage therapist usually comes at that connection from the body side of things.
Hmm.
Whereas your background, I'll get you to share with us in a minute, your background is really coming at the same kind of connection from the mind side of things, from the language
Yeah.
and the mind that we have. So I'd love it if you could share a little bit with us about that. But maybe start with what is it you actually do as far as training, and where do you fit into the kind of the therapist model that's out there?
Yeah. So I work as a coach with individual clients, and there I'm really looking at listening to their language code. And when I use the term language, it is actually a very broad definition. So it's not just the words they use, it may be gestures, facial expressions, um, breathing, blinking. There's a whole lot of physiology that comes in to language, which really does, I think, cross beautifully into the massage world, because massage therapists are masters at reading people's physiology, especially when you start to touch and work on people's bodies. You can feel things going on that perhaps the person themselves aren't consciously aware of, even themselves. You go press here and go, does that hurt? The person goes, yes, how'd you find that? so so I'm listening for language and watching for language, and then from that I craft coaching with the person, looking at bringing out their strengths and identifying with them perhaps some of their limiting beliefs and things that might be holding them back, as well as the things that empower them and work for them really well. In addition to that, I train other people in how to understand that language code so they can take that toolkit and utilize it in the work they're doing elsewhere, or even perhaps in their private life. So really training people to pick up on that language code themselves.
Yeah, and it's so true. I know Leash would talk about quite often when
Mm-hmm.
she was working with people, sometimes there would be an area of pain or of tightness that had been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And as a therapist works through the physicality of that in the body, there can be an emotional release, or even
Mm.
memories and things come up that haven't surfaced for many years.
Yeah.
And it's just that powerful mind-body connection. When the body is worked, when that body side of things is manipulated, it can impact the mind.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm interested in, from your point of view, how can the craft that you have to do with language constructs and communication, how could someone like a massage therapist use that to get better outcomes, better health outcomes for a client?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, my passion is having health professionals learn this craft, because it is almost like it almost transforms you into a magician, because you seem like a mind reader when you can hear someone making statements or constructing their reality in a way that either tells you they believe their body has a capacity to improve, for pain to dissipate, or they believe that they can't shift the pain. And when you can hear that in statements, like, for example, someone will come in and they'll say, I've had this for a very long time and it's really hard to move. My grandmother had the same thing. My mother had the same thing. I've got it. It kind of runs in the family. And, they're more or less telling you it's a prescription, not a description. And as a therapist who is working with a client, and being committed to having their body heal or improve function and reduce pain, you would want to start shaking up or undermining that really solid belief, because if your grandmother has pain in the back, it does not mean you're going to have a pain in the back as well. There's no link there. So it's important that you can begin to undermine what has been installed in that person, or they've carried around a belief for a long time. And you would do that perhaps very gently to start with, and just saying, well, if you could imagine, what's possible for you if this pain did disappear, what would that feel like? So you begin to create in the person the possibility, by utilizing perhaps imagination initially, you create the possibility for them that things could be different for them. Once you've created the possibility, then you can work with them on bringing that possibility more and more into reality. So that's really, I think, for me, making what seems impossible possible is perhaps one of the most powerful tools for anyone working in the health profession, particularly when they're working with people who are suffering, creating the possibility that they could have better quality health, they could have improved quality of life, is such a gift that you can give them. And it doesn't have to be just whilst they're having the massage. They can actually, improve ongoingly between therapies, between treatments as well. And, really installing them in them those beliefs, I think, is, to me, where the magic really can happen in physical therapies. Yeah.
I totally agree. And it's not just like you're talking about sort of generational things, that beliefs that pass down, but I even know people who have things like a car accident,
yes,
or even just a divorce or a tough job or something that's going on in their life, and it becomes part of their identity. And they come in every week or every month and they're like, oh yeah, work's been really tough. That's why my shoulders are so tight. And it reinforces the pain, or reinforces the things that they don't actually want going on in their body. Their language and their mindset reinforces that. And I guess from my own point of view, I see this a lot even in business too. It's like talking about therapists, but from my point of view, I work with so many therapists at a business level. And I even hear the same kind of constraints and restrictions being spoken from them. People will just say things like, I'm not good at Facebook. I don't want to get myself out there. I this, I that.
Yeah.
And those sort of self-beliefs, or the identity that they're creating as they say those things, they truly believe, is limiting them in what they can do.
Yeah.
So it would be great if I could ask you for a practical thing right now. If there's someone listening who's like, you know what, I've just realized right now that I do have this self-belief. I quite often say things like, I was in a car accident, and that's why I can't walk properly, or I don't like Facebook, that's why my business sucks, whatever it is. What can they do to help shift that belief? Is there something you can tell us in like a minute that's going to, I know you're a miracle working here. What can you do for us?
Well, I think all change begins with curiosity. So first of all, the question you're asking is a really important one. And we don't need a long time to make change either. So you're right, change can happen in an instant, because it is based on neural pathways. And a neural pathway can change as quickly as unplugging a power cord and plugging it in somewhere else. If someone has been in a car accident, for example, and they've learnt from the car accident a particular pattern of behavior, which might be fear or anxiety. Every time they hear a certain noise, they respond. They learnt that in an instant. They didn't have to have 50 car accidents to learn it. They learnt that reaction in an instant.
Yeah.
And that, of course, means if you can learn something in an instant, you can also learn something new in an instant. So in one instant, you can unlearn or replace a learning with something new. So for me, I would be saying, what if I could change it? What would it be like? And getting the person to begin to construct for themselves a vision or well, I like to make sure they've got the visual, the auditory, the kinesthetic, as in the physical touch feelings, not the internal emotional feelings, but the external physical touch feelings, and what they'll tell themselves about the change. So if they imagined it was different, what would it be like? Or what could it be like? And I'm choosing my words very carefully there, because what we're creating here is possibility versus necessity. So a necessity is, I have to change this, it's got to change, it must, but unconsciously they don't actually believe it's possible. So first of all, we have to make it possible. And we do that by saying, what if it could change? What could it be like? And they can create different scenarios even. What if I could just turn that pain, that neck pain from the car accident, what if I could just turn it down, two degrees, or if I could just turn the volume down, from a 25 down to a 20, if I could just adjust the volume a little bit, what would that be like? Or what if I change, if I thought about that pain, does it have a color? Maybe it's red hot. What if I made it cool blue? Would that change it? And so you start to play with what are known as submodalities, or the characteristics of the pain or the challenge they've got, and they realize that they do have control. They have control over what color it is. They have control over how loud it is, or how soft it is, or how intense it is, or how hot it is, or how cool it is. And then you start to wonder, well, what else have I got control over?
I
And
love that.
just bringing that curiosity in. And it works. It's wonderful with kids, let me tell you. If you can teach your kids that, it's awesome. But it works with anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. And I love the way you're opening possibilities, because that
Yeah.
allows people to kind of try different things on,
Mm-hmm.
and they realize that it can perhaps be that their mind is limiting part of the healing that's happening in their body. Or maybe
Yeah.
some healing has already even happened. But
Yes.
because their mindset is fixated in a certain way, they just haven't noticed. And
No.
it's one of these things where I guess, as someone who's nowhere near as studied in this as you are, Joe, but I kind of tend to think it's like what's the word? It's like one step and then the other step. It's like two
Mm-hmm.
feet forming a rhythm together.
Yeah.
We've got to have mindset that moves us forward, and then we do actually have to have the physical healing as well. That might take us one step further, and then we
Yeah.
improve our mind a bit more, and then we improve some more physically or in the world around us, and we kind of each one steps up with the other.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
I guess, and I don't know exactly where you stand on this, but I kind of feel like if we focused only on the internal, on our mind, we might end
Mm-hmm.
up like a monk, just alone in a cave somewhere, meditating all day and having a great time.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the lifestyle or the impact that people might want to have. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, anyway, I kind of feel like we need to have the internal state managed and do what we can to move forward with that, at the
Yeah.
same time as producing the effects in the world that we want to have.
Yeah. Well, the reality is things like fear or lack of confidence is a good one, because lots of people say, oh, I'm not confident yet. Like they're waiting for someone to deliver a package of confidence to their front
Yeah.
door. And then they go, oh, here it is. I'll put that on. Now I can do it. When in fact, that's not what confidence is. Confidence is, to quote a well-known book, feel the fear and do it anyway. And then through the doing, you gain the confidence. Confidence only comes from actually taking action. And so you need to take the action, as you said, James, take the action, and then you feel the confidence building as your mastery builds with each of the steps you're taking. So when we're learning something new or we're doing something that's unfamiliar to us, we definitely feel that what I call the buttock clenching moment. It's like, uh-oh. And then you move on from there where you practice, and you think, hold on a minute, I'm starting to get this now. I'm really starting to build some skill in this area. And then you keep practicing, it becomes automatic. You don't even think about it anymore. And you hardly can tell anyone how you do it because it's so automatic. So the action is what takes you on that journey. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And it's true in business as well as
Yes.
in other things. And I remember a little while back at a client retreat that I had with some of our clients, and we were talking about doing Facebook Lives, which for a lot of people, especially 6 or 12 months ago, was a very fearful thing. It's like getting out
Yep.
live. People feel nervous doing that. And we're in a group, and one lady had just done 30 days of Facebook Lives. So she'd done a Facebook Live every day for 30 days.
Yeah.
And someone else in the room, they were all like applauding her. And someone else in the room said, how did you get the confidence to do that? And she said, confidence? I wasn't confident. What are you talking about? I was scared. It took until about day 10 before I felt confident.
Exactly.
And it's such a true story. It's like if you do the thing, that's how you get confident.
Yes.
And that's true in business and in practice, like physical practice, as well as in all sorts of other areas of our lives. Absolutely.
It is. And the other thing I'd say about confidence, and it can also be like this for clients going on a journey to get rid of pain, sometimes people think if you have confidence, you have no fear or no anxiety. And similarly, they think you either have pain or you have no pain. In reality, the confidence grows and there's still fear or anxiety there, but it's getting less and less important, and it becomes less and less your focus. And eventually you begin to call that fear excitement because you've got enough confidence. You go, that adrenaline is now, I'm going to call that excitement now because I know I have the skills and capability to do this. And similarly with people who've had perhaps chronic pain for a long time, that you can't imagine a life without it. So all their decisions in the day, even down to, how to put on their socks or where to put on their socks in the morning, do I have to sit down? Do I have to do it like this? Do I have to do it? It's decided with reference to this pain. Now, if the pain's gone, suddenly all their decisions in life now have to be based on something different. So that happens over time gradually, rather than in an instant where the feelings suddenly change. The change in behaviour can happen in an instant, and we build the new neural pathways around that. But the feelings can still be there for some time because they're almost like, as you said before, if they become embedded in our identity, it's like just transforming your identity. Sometimes you let go of it fast, and sometimes it takes a bit of time.
Yeah. And feelings are not a direct dial. It's not like something where you can read using feelings exactly what's happening at any given moment.
No.
And I see so many correlations in business to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like we often say, don't run your business based on feelings.
Yes.
You want your business to make you feel good. Once you've got it right, it should feel good. But if on a given day you get a bunch of cancellations, you're having a bad day, someone, I don't know, calls and you miss them, and you feel bad, the decisions that you make in that moment are not necessarily the best to move you forward, So we want to try and have dials or dashboard readings that we can use that are not just based on feelings. And it's almost like you're saying the same thing with our own mind. It's like, don't just understand yourself based on your feelings. You're not your feelings.
No.
Your feelings are a bit of a delayed reading, a bit of a delayed dial.
Yeah.
Which I think is fascinating.
Yeah, I think I've heard about feelings talked about tuning into a radio station. So you tune into a radio station, it's playing a particular sort of music. And in reaction to that music, you have particular emotional responses, So, for instance, if it's a song that makes you happy, you might smile. If it's a sad song, you might feel sad. If you don't like what you're hearing on the radio, you change the station. Well, it's the same sort of thing. What you're thinking about creates an emotional response.
Mm.
So if you're taking information in from your external environment, like cancellations, and if you make that mean something not nice, you think nobody loves me, everybody hates me, they're not going to come
Yep.
and see me, yeah, then you may have an emotional response to that, which is sadness or feeling inadequate, or it may trigger one of the core, 3 core fears that we all have: not lovable, don't belong, and not good enough. One of those ones might fire off. And you're right, that's not the right time to make significant business decisions. It may be a good time to go and get a massage yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
And say, well, this is my opportunity. I've been so busy, I haven't had time to look after myself. So that's what I'm going to use this time for, or do something to spoil yourself. But it's not a great time to make big business decisions. Just
Yeah.
put it aside and move on. And then in a few days you won't have. There'll be days when you're booked out. And the person ringing you up who wants an appointment and can't get in is thinking, she doesn't care about me. Or
Yeah.
he doesn't care about me.
And they're feeling the emotions.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when we're talking about, because a lot of the stuff you're mentioning, it has a base, or the way I would look at it, a big foundation of it is self-awareness. Like once you've got an awareness of how your own mind is working and thinking,
Yeah.
it's almost like that's a requirement to making a lot of these other changes that go from there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question is really like, is that right? And is there anything that you do yourself to help be more self-aware? Like I know some meditations and other things, visualizations might help some people with that.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Well, for me, I'm into studying patterns. So,
Mm.
my background previously, I have studied psychology and sociology, and I was very interested in the patterns of behavior, both from an individual perspective, which is the psychology approach, and from the sociological perspective. So in particular cultures or in particular social environments, what are people's patterns of behavior? Then with NLP, what I notice is we all have patterns of behavior, or habits, you might call them habits about the way we think, habits about what we do. So I like to study the patterns. So taking your behavior and going, if you like, going to what I call a meta level, which is making it more abstract and saying, what's the structure of this behavior? And where else does that show up in my life? And getting really curious about that. Because if I change the structure rather than changing the behavior, the structure, it will affect everywhere the pattern shows up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm always curious about what's that pattern? What's that about? Where did that come from? And so I ask myself those questions. And of course, my favorite question of all is, how's that working for you?
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how's that working for me? Is that getting me the results I want, really? Really? And if
Yeah.
it's not, I'm kind of curious about, well, how come I'm doing it? Like
Yeah.
what needs is it meaning for me? Yeah. Because my presupposition is that my unconscious mind is doing the best it can with what it's got. So if I'm continually sabotaging, which of course I do in certain areas of my life all the time, if I'm continually sabotaging myself, as we all do, then I need to ask myself, okay, so why would my unconscious mind think that's a good way to behave? What is the need that my unconscious mind is meeting? And it might be, like a 2-year-old temper tantrum kind of need, who knows? But just getting really, really curious about my own behavior, which of
Mm.
course, if I've got something in me, I'm going to see that in other people. Because
Mm.
you know how when you go out and you buy yourself a new car, which you did not that long ago, James, from recollection, you and Leash. So if you go out and buy yourself a new car and you sort of got in mind a particular type of car and a particular colour, when you go out, you see it everywhere because you
Absolutely.
see what's relevant to you, right? It's the same with your behavior. So if you're going out there and you're seeing a certain type of behavior going on around you all the time, and go, everywhere I go, I'm seeing these people, blah, 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 and there's something, okay, so what does that tell me about me?
Mm.
Where's that behavior showing up in my life? And remember, it might not be exactly the same context, but it's the structure of the behavior that you're looking at. So for me, that's the whole self-awareness thing in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. And you
Mm.
mentioned just then NLP,
Yeah.
which do you want to share with us what NLP is? Some of our listeners will be familiar with it, but I'm sure there'll
Yeah.
be people that don't know what that means.
Yeah. So neuro-linguistic programming, it's called NLP, and it's a study of language and how it impacts on the neurology in our bodies. So every time we have a thought, every time we move a muscle, we're transmitting electrical messages throughout our body. And language does that as well. So we want to study how language is impacting on our neurology. And in particular, we want to study the patterns of language that reveal habits and strategies that either keep us stuck in where we are, or perhaps habits and strategies that are the ones that really move us forward. Because what I find often when I'm coaching people and they come to me and they want to change something, they go, "Oh, I'm really bad at this, this thing over here, like, I don't know, I'm really bad at my business, but I'm a really good therapist, really good treating clients. My clients love me, but I just don't seem to be able to get it together in my marketing or something." Then you go, okay, so what's the strategy you run with with your clients? How do you know what's the best way to work with your clients? And they'll talk about meeting the client, welcoming them, perhaps looking at them, listening to what they're saying, processing the information, planning action, and then moving forward. And you go, well, what if you took that exact strategy over to your marketing? What would it mean if you were looking or meeting people through your marketing? What would that be like? How could we have it so that your marketing actually was kind of like meeting people? And so you rebuild the same strategy in their marketing as they're using in their therapy, but at a structure level.
I love that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can see how people who are already familiar with a certain pathway, a certain way of
Yep.
working, can just lift that entire pathway up and plonk it down in another
Yeah.
context.
Yeah.
And it's almost like following the same path, but in a different environment.
Yes.
Still going to work through it the same way. They know the twists and turns, they know what's going to happen next. But
Exactly.
they're just doing it in marketing instead of in the treatment room. Yeah, that's a fantastic way of looking at it. I love
Yeah. Yeah. And so then you're utilizing their own like, people say, how did, you come up with great solutions. I said, I actually didn't come up with it. It was your solution. All I suggested was exactly what you just said, James. Pick it up, put it into a different context, and apply the strategy that it's your strategy. It already works really well for you. So use that same strategy over there in that other context, and let's see how that goes.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it. It's really powerful and super useful for
Yeah.
people who are very good at their craft and want to just be able to improve some skills in another area. It's like, let's leverage what you're already good at.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
great.
Yeah.
So, sort of to come back around to the business side of things, Joe.
Yep.
I know you've been running a business for quite a while yourself. You do
Yes.
NLP training. That's a big part of what you do right now.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what we do on this podcast is we just sort of try and peel back the layers a little bit on business. And I think all of us, at different points, we look at other business people and we go, oh my goodness, they've got it all together. They're doing so well. Why is my business not like that? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
So part of what I try and do is kind of just peel back the layers a little bit and say, people only get to where they are because of the action that they've taken. And
Mm-hmm.
no one has a smooth journey. Everybody
No.
starts not knowing what they're doing, and they have to learn, whether it's studying or whether they learn by just making lots of mistakes and getting it
Yeah.
right. So is there something you can share with us about how you started your business journey,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was in the training or whatever other business?
Yeah.
How did you start?
Well, I was working full time for the Transport Accident Commission when it moved to Geelong. So I moved up to Geelong, and my intention was to leave after 12 months and go back to Melbourne. And based on that, I decided to start a business. So I went in and did the training I needed to do to set up my business. And whilst I was still working at the TAC, I actually took on a client who I coached after hours or on weekends and did quite a bit of work with her over about 12 months as a coach. In addition to that, I had pro bono clients and all the things you need to do in your training, yeah? So based on that, I decided, yeah, I can do this. I can start a business. And I left TAC at the end of the 12 months and launched into my business. And it was really tough, that first 12 months. Some of the things that were very unexpected for me was the isolation of working on my own. I hadn't realised how much I enjoyed the social environment of the office. Just knowing that there were people around, like you could just turn to someone and say, "Oh, do you want a cup of coffee? I'm going to the kitchen," or they do the same for you. And so, suddenly I was alone most of the day. I think I drove Peter, my husband, crazy when he came home from work. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. So just those sort of things were unexpected for me in terms of the business. Also, overcoming some technological challenges, because I had the good fortune in my previous roles to have very good executive assistants, and I thought everything happened really fast, but for me, when I had to do it myself, everything took so much longer. So I had these totally unrealistic timelines on the work I was going to be able to produce. And so I kept noticing that I was losing motivation or being very hard on myself because I wasn't meeting the timelines I'd set. And then I just needed to kind of recognize that I was pretty bad at setting timelines. So what I used to do was I'd set a timeline and I multiplied it by 5. And then I was suddenly much more successful at meeting my goals. So, just realizing that I wasn't good at setting timelines because I'd never had to do it on my own. So those sort of things were big learnings for me in terms of enjoying my business and cutting myself a bit of slack, but also being focused on delivering the result rather than measuring myself with just a timeline. Like, I was making progress, focusing on the progress I did make. So sitting down at the end of every week and saying, you know what, I've learned this and I've learned this and I've learned this. I might not have done the 10 things that I thought I would get done because I didn't know what I didn't know when I started out doing those 10 things. And of course, at the time, I did have a coach, but my coach wasn't someone who was starting on their own in a business. So my coach worked in a different context. And I would recommend definitely getting yourself a good coach or having a mentor who's walked the path you're walking, because then that can really help getting realistic sooner rather than being really harsh on yourself.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement there, of course. This is what we do.
Of course. Well, that's true. That's true.
We see the benefits of that.
Absolutely.
One other thing I wanted to just quickly ask you about, about marketing. And I know, I'm a marketer. I ran a marketing agency for a long time, do a heap of stuff online.
Yeah.
Our business now, we're all over Facebook, Instagram, the web. It's probably, I would say, 80 to 90% of our marketing comes online. Now, massage therapy is a little bit different, but we still have a strong focus on online stuff for those guys as well, along with a couple of real-world strategies. And I know that you, Jo, are not really an online kind of person. You're there, but not a natural duck to water kind of thing. Yeah. So what have you done to make that work for you?
Make not being online work for me, or not being so intensely online?
Yeah, or what have you done that's not online that is working for you, that you don't need to? Because obviously if you needed to, you would learn. You're very capable, strong-willed, you're intelligent, you're going to learn that stuff. Yeah. So what is it that's meant you don't have to be so active online?
Yeah. Well, part of it I think is it's got to do with who your ideal client is. So my ideal client are health professionals. And in my experience, quite a lot, like psychologists, osteopaths, a lot of them physiotherapists and massage therapists as well. And massage therapists are on Facebook a lot and do use Facebook much more than a lot of the other professions I work with. But for me, it is about establishing credibility with your ideal client. So it's about being in the medium they're at. And for most of my clients, they actually come from a face-to-face contact, which might be me presenting at a conference, or it might be a referral from a previous client. It might be they might see something like the magazine articles I write or something like that. They might think, yeah, I like what she's saying, I want to talk to her. But most of my clients come that way. Also, I'm in business, the BNI group, Business Network International Group in Geelong, and I would do 6 figures in referrals from them every year.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, probably about somewhere between $120,000 and $180,000 a year from BNI would be my average. So that works. And it's not just people in the BNI group, obviously, it's people they know. So that's where the word of mouth referral comes in. I suspect that part of the advantage I've got is I live in a regional town, and in a regional centre like Geelong, a lot of your success as business comes from word of mouth. Everyone knows everyone. It surprised me when I first moved to Geelong how much everyone knows everyone. But yeah, so if you're not well known in the community, then that's definitely you're not going to get business. It doesn't matter how much you're online. Yeah, if to go to a larger scale or to push through a higher volume of clients, I would definitely be looking at online. But I only coach 4 businesses at the highest level of my coaching practice. I only work with 4 businesses at the most in a year. I cap it because I'm very intensely involved with those businesses, and I'm also a bit on demand for them. So if they want me to work with them in a specific sort of way, I do that, and that's what I love to do. I'm not I'm not a McDonald's coach. I don't have a cookie cutter. Everybody gets the same, because that doesn't work. It's not the sort of person I am, and it's not the sort of people the businesses I work with are. So yeah, so I think for my niche, the personal approach is better. In terms of training, I suspect I could get more people into my training rooms if I turn up the online marketing a bit more.
So
So that's my challenge.
Might have to look at a strategy using offline, pick it up, drop it down in another context.
That's correct. That's exactly right. Exactly right. A bit more Facebook Live.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Look, I think there is stuff that I know massage therapists are a very different business model to what you do. They need a fairly high number of regular clients coming in, and
absolutely
clients, that kind of stuff. But what I see is that some of those things you mentioned are still very relevant just within that context. Getting out there and getting known in your communities, absolutely, it makes everything else you do so much easier.
Yeah, it does.
Even if you are doing something like Facebook really well, if all people see the very first time they see of you is just one little Facebook post, it's almost meaningless, because Facebook is just so big and so shallow.
Yeah.
It's like any one little bit is just not enough to make an impact. But if they've seen you run a workshop, or they've seen you in real life somewhere up in front of a stage, or just in person at a local market, something like that, then even the online stuff suddenly has a bit more meaning to people.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's that person I saw down at the market last weekend. I've still got her card somewhere. Where is that? And it all kind of feeds together really, really well.
Yes.
So it's like, for a massage therapist, all that in-person stuff sort of raises profile. And then we look at the online thing as it can help with profile, but it's more about the connection in the moment. It's just very quick, very simple connections. So I love the combination of the two, and there's definitely things that therapists can learn from what you're doing. Which is great. Also, I thought I'd just mention BNI. Massage therapists can join BNI chapters as well. I don't know if there's one in your chapter or not, but we do have some clients that love it, that do really well from it. We have others that don't. They either join and, they go okay, but they decide not to renew or whatever. It's definitely something where we see, depending on location and the actual chapter itself, it can be beneficial. So
exactly.
Therapists are listening to this and they're interested in BNI, I'm sure they can go and have a look, and there's definitely going to be a BNI person in their client base that'll invite them along, and
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Have a look at that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing those. Is there anything else, one last tip that you would give for a massage therapist in a business context, if they're just starting up and they're early on their journey and they're like, I'm trying to gather new clients, and back to the mindset thing, I'm feeling a bit like I just can't get this together. I don't know what to do. I'm starting to feel a bit despondent. I'm gonna go get a job at Woolies if I can't make this work. What would you give them as that just one little piece of advice or one little tactic to get them through?
Like obviously we're all grown-ups, we have financial responsibilities, and it's important you do meet your financial responsibilities and bring your business up whilst you're able to do that. You don't just throw it all away and say, I'm going to live on, I'm going to starve while I build my business, because you might be starving for a while. But, just have a strategy to gradually grow. And but remembering that the mindset I bring to my clients, the mindset you bring to your clients, is what they ultimately will leave you with. The feeling. That's the feeling they'll leave you with. So you want to make sure you've got your strategies sorted in your head, to make sure you're their best. You're there to serve your clients, which is really what it's all about, isn't it? As a massage therapist, you're there. You are intimately serving your clients, and they want to go away feeling, and you want them to go away feeling totally awesome. So, focus on that. Your gift. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like owning yourself, making sure you're in the right place so that you can serve better from that place of leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it does take time. Your clients are not going to come in, have one massage and live happily ever after with no pain ever again in their life. And you are not going to say, I'm starting my business, have one full week and go away saying, I've got a successful business forever in my life. It takes work, and you'll have to go back and redo things, and, you'll have times when it's intense, just like your clients will, and they'll come back to you and they'll go through it again. So it's the same pattern. And I'm the pattern girl, so.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I love it. So set a pattern so that your clients can follow along with that well.
Yeah.
So just before we go, Jo, if anyone is interested in coming to one of your trainings or learning more about NLP and what you do to help them improve their mindset and set that place of leadership, that kind of thing, where would they find more about you?
So they can go to my website, which is destinypursuit.com.au, and I have my training, or I have registration of interest for training. And I'm actually going to be offering NLP practitioner training in Brisbane and Perth and Sydney this year. So if people are interested, as well as in Geelong. So Geelong's my hometown, and that's where I love to deliver the service, but I have got opportunities for a few students anyway to jump into trainings in Brisbane, Sydney or Perth later in 2019. So jump onto my website and have a look, and look forward to connecting.
Yeah, I love it. Can't wait. So I definitely recommend people head through to the website, take a look at what's coming up, and touch base with Joanne if you're interested. Love it. Thank you very much, Joanne. So great to have you on the podcast today. I really appreciate having you here. And I'm sure the stuff that you've been able to share is super beneficial to our listeners. So thank you once again.
Great. Thanks, Jane.